I caught my brother, kept stealing our mother's cancer medication and using it to get his fix. When I confronted him, he said, "She's dead anyway. Why does it matter?" I left him alone. Fast forward to today, he's crying and begging for us to forgive him. My mother only had a few months left to live. She had stage 4 cancer, and we were just trying to keep her comfortable at home. I moved back in to help out and do what I could, because honestly, she was the kind of mom who always showed up. She was supposed to be on a pretty strict medication schedule, fentanyl patches for the worst of the pain, but some nights I'd walk in and find her curled in on herself, clutching her side, teeth clenched like she was trying not to cry. I offered to call the doctor, maybe increase her dosage. She brushed me off and said she was fine. That should have been the end of it, but something didn't sit right. One night I found her weeping, not sobbing, not loud, just these tiny gasps as she sat on the edge of the bed holding her stomach. I checked her pouch under her pillow where she usually kept the patches, and a few were missing. When I asked, she fumbled through this excuse about forgetting how many she'd used. I didn't want to press, but I started paying attention. That's when I remembered how my brother Jason always kissed her forehead when he visited, really slow, like he was praying. His hand would always linger under her pillow. I used to think it was sweet. Then I started counting the patches. I'd mark the corner of the packages with a dot. A couple would always go missing after Jason came by. Jason was different lately too. He'd come over full of smiles and devotion, told everyone he was heartbroken about Mom. But I noticed how jumpy he got the longer he stayed. He'd start to sweat and pace, like he was desperate to be alone with her. I started sticking around during his visits and he'd get quiet, weird, distant. Mom started hiding her meds in different places, under the mattress, inside a sock in her drawer, in a little Ziploc taped inside her robe. I never saw her do it. I just found the hiding spots by accident. But even then, she kept running out. When I finally asked her if someone was taking her medication, she flinched. Not physically, just this stiffness in her voice. She said, "Everyone in this family is doing their best," and she wouldn't look at me after. A few days later, I found 3 empty fentanyl packages in the bathroom trash, stuffed under tissues and a razor cartridge box, not where Mom would ever put them. The worst part was watching her in pain and knowing she was timing her relief around Jason's visits. She'd wait hours just to make sure he didn't have the opportunity to steal more, and even then, he'd find a way. She finally broke one night. I found her shaking and pale, and she asked if I'd sit in her room when Jason visited. She didn't explain, just asked, quiet, embarrassed. I said yes. I didn't even think. I just sat. That night, I installed a small camera in the room. It looked like a clock. She nodded when I told her. No words, just that same tired look. The footage nearly broke me. Jason bent over to kiss her like always. Then his hand slid under the pillow, and he pocketed the patch in one clean motion. She didn't move. She just lay there, eyes closed, pretending. I confronted him alone. He didn't deny it. He even seemed proud of it, said he could get his fix for free. He even blamed us, said no one noticed because we were all too focused on Mom. She's dead anyway. Why does she matter more? I stood there feeling sick. It's at that moment that Mom called for us. She'd heard. She told us both she knew all along, that she had tried asking her doctor for more, but there were limits. She said she didn't want her last days to be filled with fighting. Her voice was weak, but firm. I called Jason outside the next day. He looked ready for a fight. I handed him an envelope. Inside was some money and the address of a rehab facility. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "You have 2 choices. Get help now, or don't come back until after she's gone." And Jason lunged at me, swinging wildly. I stepped back, but his fist caught my shoulder. I stumbled but didn't fall. He kept coming, all flailing arms and incoherent shouting. I managed to grab his wrists and push him back. "This is what you're choosing?" I asked. "This is how you want to spend Mom's last weeks?" He yanked himself free and stormed off to his car. I watched him peel out of the driveway, my heart pounding. I had no idea if he'd take the rehab information or throw it away. All I knew was that I had to protect Mom. I went back inside and found Mom crying silently in her bed. I sat beside her and held her hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have said something sooner." I shook my head. "This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault." That night, I called Mom's doctor and explained the situation. She was understanding but concerned. She suggested we switch to a different pain management system, one that would be harder for Jason to abuse. Instead of patches that could be easily pocketed, she prescribed a liquid form that had to be measured and administered immediately. It wasn't ideal. Mom preferred the steady release of the patches, but it was safer. The next few days were quiet. Jason didn't call or visit. I focused on making Mom comfortable, learning the new medication routine, and trying to create some happy moments in between the hard ones. We watched old family videos one afternoon. Mom told me stories about when Jason and I were little, before everything got complicated. "He was such a sweet boy," she said, looking at footage of 7-year-old Jason helping her in the garden. "Always trying to take care of everyone." I bit my tongue. The Jason I knew now was only taking care of himself. 4 days after our confrontation, Jason showed up unannounced. I was in the kitchen making lunch when I heard the front door open. I tensed, ready for another fight. But when Jason walked in, something was different. He looked clearer somehow, still rough around the edges, but his eyes weren't as wild. "I went," he said simply, "to the place. I talked to them." I nodded cautiously. "And they have a bed open next week, 30-day program." He shifted uncomfortably. "I don't have insurance though." I sighed. Of course he didn't. "We'll figure something out." Jason glanced toward Mom's room. "Is she awake? Can I see her?" "She's resting." I said, and we've changed her medication. There's nothing for you to take anymore. He flinched like I'd slapped him. I didn't come for that. I want to tell her I'm sorry. I studied his face, trying to decide if I believed him. You can see her when I'm in the room. That's the deal now. He nodded, accepting this new boundary. When Mom woke up, I let him visit briefly. He seemed genuinely remorseful, kneeling by her bed and holding her hand. Mom, being Mom, forgave him instantly. She even offered to help pay for rehab, which made me want to scream, but I kept quiet. This was between them. After Jason left, promising to return the next day, I called the rehab facility myself. I wanted to verify his story. The intake coordinator confirmed that yes, Jason Williams had come in for an assessment and was scheduled to begin treatment the following Monday. They couldn't share details due to privacy laws, but at least I knew he hadn't lied about that. The next morning, I woke up to find Mom's bedroom door open. She was sitting up in bed, looking through an old photo album. She smiled when I came in. I was just remembering, she said, patting the space beside her. I sat down and looked at the photos. They were from a camping trip we took when I was about 9. Dad was still with us then. We all looked happy. I need to ask you something, Mom said, closing the album. Something important. I braced myself. Anything. I want you to promise you'll help Jason after I'm gone. Her eyes were clear and direct. He's going to need someone. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to refuse, to tell her that Jason had made his choices and I wasn't responsible for him, but the bigger part of me couldn't deny her this. I'll try, I said finally. That's all I can promise. She squeezed my hand. That's enough. Jason came by that afternoon as promised. He brought flowers for Mom and a peace offering for me, coffee from the good place downtown. We sat in Mom's room together, the three of us, trying to act normal. Jason told some story about a customer at the auto shop that made Mom laugh. For a moment, it felt like old times. Then Mom had a pain spike. I went to get her medication, measuring out the dose carefully. When I turned around, I caught Jason watching the bottle in my hands with an intensity that made my skin crawl. The hunger in his eyes was unmistakable. Why don't you go get some fresh air? I suggested, not bothering to hide my suspicion. He left without arguing, and I administered Mom's dose. When she was comfortable again, I checked the medication bottle, making sure the level matched what I expected. It did, but the encounter left me uneasy. Over the next few days, Jason continued to visit. He seemed to be making an effort, bringing small gifts, helping around the house, staying for longer periods. He talked about rehab, saying he was nervous but ready. I wanted to believe him, but something felt off. He was too interested in Mom's medication schedule, too eager to be helpful with her care. 3 days before he was supposed to check into rehab, I came home from a quick grocery run to find Jason in the bathroom, frantically searching through the medicine cabinet. He jumped when he saw me. What are you doing? I asked, though I already knew. Just looking for some aspirin, he said, not meeting my eyes. I set down the grocery bags. Mom's medication isn't in there. You know that. He slammed the cabinet shut. I said I was looking for aspirin. I blocked the doorway. Jason, if you're still using, the rehab isn't going to work. You have to be honest. Get out of my way, he growled, pushing past me. I grabbed his arm. Wait, just talk to me. He yanked free and stormed out of the house. I heard his car start up and screech away. I checked on Mom, who was sleeping peacefully, unaware of what had just happened. Then I did a thorough inventory of her medication. Everything was accounted for, thankfully. That night, I got a text from Jason. Sorry about today. Nervous about rehab. Still going, I promise. I wanted to believe him. I really did. The next day, I had to take Mom to a doctor's appointment. It was a struggle getting her in and out of the car, and she was exhausted by the time we got home. I helped her into bed and gave her medication. She fell asleep almost immediately. I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard a noise from the front of the house. Thinking she might need something, I went to check on her. As I approached, I noticed the security camera alert on my phone that I'd missed while helping Mom. The footage showed Jason using his old key to enter the house about 10 minutes earlier. I hurried to Mom's room, but she was still sleeping peacefully. I followed the sound of movement and found Jason in Dad's old office, standing by her bedside, going through her nightstand drawer. What the hell are you doing? I demanded. He spun around, startled. I was just looking for her chapstick. Her lips looked dry. I pointed to the chapstick sitting in plain view on top of the nightstand. Try again. His face hardened. Fine. I need money for rehab. I was looking for her checkbook. You expect me to believe that? After everything? I moved closer, lowering my voice so Mom wouldn't wake up. You're looking for drugs. Admit it. Think whatever you want, he snapped. I'm trying to get better. I shook my head. If you were serious about rehab, you wouldn't be in here searching through Mom's things while she sleeps. You don't understand addiction, he said, his voice rising. It's not that simple. Lower your voice, I hissed, and get out, now. He glared at me but left the room. I followed him to make sure he actually left the house. At the front door, he turned to face me. I'm still going to rehab on Monday, he said, whether you believe me or not. After he left, I went back to check on Mom. She was awake, looking sad. You heard all that? I asked. She nodded. He's struggling, Casey. Addiction is a disease. I know that, I said, sitting on the edge of her bed. But that doesn't give him the right to steal from you or let you suffer. She sighed. No, it doesn't. But he's still my son. The weekend passed without any sign of Jason. Monday came, the day he was supposed to check into rehab. I called the facility in the afternoon to see if he'd shown up. Due to privacy policies, they couldn't tell me if he was there, but the receptionist did say something that set off alarm bells. If you're calling about the payment issue, we're still waiting for the insurance verification he promised. I thanked her and hung up, my suspicions growing. Jason didn't have insurance. We'd discussed this. If he was telling them otherwise, something wasn't right. That evening, Jason called Mom's phone. I answered since she was resting. Hey, I'm all checked in, he said, sounding upbeat. The place is nice. Got my own room and everything. I didn't confront him immediately. That's great. How long until you can have visitors? He hesitated. Probably a couple weeks. They're pretty strict at first. What's the address again? I asked casually. I want to send you some things. Another pause. I'll text it to you later. Battery's dying and I gotta go to group now. After we hung up, I did some research online about the rehab facility. According to their website, new patients were allowed visitors after just 3 days, not weeks, and they had shared rooms, not private ones. Jason was lying. He wasn't in rehab at all. The next day, I decided to drive by his apartment to see if his car was there. Sure enough, his beat-up Honda was parked out front. I sat in my car for a while, trying to decide what to do. Part of me wanted to confront him immediately, but another part worried about leaving Mom alone for too long. I was about to leave when I saw Jason come out of his apartment with a guy I didn't recognize. They got into the other man's car and drove off. Something about their interaction seemed off, furtive, rushed. When I got home, Mom was awake and watching TV. I didn't tell her what I'd discovered. What was the point? It would only hurt her more. That night, I got a text from Jason. Therapy going great. Miss you guys. I didn't respond. The next morning, I woke up early to the sound of someone in the kitchen. Thinking Mom had gotten up on her own, I rushed downstairs. Instead, I found Jason rummaging through the cabinets. What are you doing here? I asked, startling him. He turned around, looking jittery and pale. Needed some coffee. Ran out at the apartment. I thought you were in rehab, I said coldly. He avoided my eyes. Weekend pass. They let me come home for a bit. Stop lying, I said. I drove by your place yesterday. I saw you. His face changed then, all pretense dropping away. Fine. I didn't go. Happy now? Why would that make me happy? I asked. And why are you really here? We don't keep coffee in that cabinet. He slammed the cabinet door shut. I need money, okay? I owe some people. Drug dealers, you mean? I said. He didn't deny it. They're not the kind of guys you want to mess with. I just need enough to get them off my back. Then I'll get clean. For real this time. I crossed my arms. How much? 2,000, he said quickly, like he'd rehearsed it. I laughed without humor. You think I have that kind of money just lying around? I'm on leave from work to take care of Mom. Mom has it, he said, his voice taking on an ugly edge. She's got savings. That's for her care, I said, incredulous. For hospice when the time comes. You can't seriously be asking for that. She's dying anyway, he shouted, then immediately looked ashamed. I didn't mean, I need help, Casey. I took a deep breath. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave right now. Don't come back until you're actually in rehab. I'll call them myself to verify. And if I don't, he challenged, then I'll tell Mom everything. About how you're not in rehab. About how you came here asking for her savings to pay off drug dealers. Do you really want her last memories of you to be that? He stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed his keys from the counter and left without another word. I locked the door behind him, my hands shaking. When Mom woke up, I told her Jason had called from rehab and was doing well. The lie tasted bitter, but it seemed kinder than the truth. For the next few days, things were quiet. No sign of Jason, no calls, no texts. I focused on Mom, whose good days were becoming rarer. The hospice nurse started coming more frequently, adjusting her care plan as needed. Then one afternoon, while Mom was napping, I heard a noise from the front of the house. I checked my phone and saw another security camera alert, showing Jason entering through the side door. I went to investigate and found the door to my dad's old office open. Jason was inside, going through the desk drawers. What the hell? I said, startling him. He straightened up, looking caught. I still have a key, you know. This is my house too. What are you looking for? I demanded. Mom's checkbook, he admitted. Or her bank card. Something. I couldn't believe his audacity. Get out. Now. You don't understand, he said, his voice desperate. These guys, they're serious. They said they'd come here if I don't pay. A chill ran down my spine. You told drug dealers where Mom is, while she's dying of cancer? He had the decency to look ashamed. Not on purpose. It just came up. I stepped closer to him, lowering my voice. Listen to me very carefully. You are going to leave right now. You are not going to come back. If those guys show up here, I'm calling the police immediately. You wouldn't, he said, but he sounded uncertain. Try me, I replied. Mom doesn't need this stress. She doesn't need to see what you've become. Something in my voice must have gotten through to him, because he left, without further argument. I watched from the window as he drove away, then double-checked all the locks on the doors and windows. That night, I moved Mom's purse and all her financial information into my bedroom. I slept with my door open, listening for any unusual sounds. Nothing happened, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The next day, I called a locksmith and had all the locks changed. It was expensive, but necessary. I also made sure the security camera at the front door was working properly, checking that the app on my phone was receiving alerts correctly. 2 days later, my phone alerted me to movement at the front door. I checked the feed and saw Jason trying his key, looking confused when it didn't work. He rang the doorbell several times, then started pounding on the door. I went to answer it, leaving Mom resting in her room. When I opened the door, Jason looked terrible, sweaty, shaking, with dark circles under his eyes. Why did you change the locks? He demanded. You know why, I said, blocking the entrance. What do you want? I need to see Mom, he said, trying to look past me into the house. She's resting, I told him. And you're clearly high right now. He ran his hands through his hair, agitated. I'm not. I need help, Casey. For real this time. I'd heard this before. Call the rehab center. I'll drive you there myself right now. It's not that simple, he said, his voice cracking. These guys, they're looking for me. They said they'd come here. I felt a surge of anger. So you led them straight to us? Again? No. I made sure no one followed me. he insisted. Please, just let me in. Just for tonight. I hesitated. Despite everything, he was still my brother, still Mom's son, but I couldn't risk bringing his chaos into her final days. I can't, I said finally, but I can help you find somewhere safe to go, a shelter maybe, or I can call Tyler. Tyler was Jason's friend from high school, who had always been decent. Forget it, Jason snapped, turning to leave. I'll figure it out myself. I watched him walk away, feeling a complicated mix of guilt and relief. I checked on Mom, who was still sleeping peacefully, unaware of what had just happened. That night, I got a series of increasingly desperate texts from Jason. They're looking for me. I need $500 by tomorrow or they're coming to the house. Why won't you help me? This is your fault. I didn't respond to any of them. I couldn't tell if he was manipulating me or genuinely in trouble, but either way, giving him money would only make things worse in the long run. The next morning, I woke up to find Mom sitting up in bed, looking at her phone with a troubled expression. What's wrong? I asked, sitting beside her. She showed me her phone. Jason had texted her directly. Mom, Casey won't help me. I'm in real trouble. Need money ASAP. Love you. My heart sank. Mom, he's lying. He's trying to get drug money. She looked at me with tired eyes. I know what he's doing, Casey. I'm not naive. But he's still my son, and he's in pain. A different kind of pain, I pointed out gently. She nodded. Yes, but pain nonetheless. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she said something that surprised me. I want to see him. One more time, but I want to do it right. What do you mean? I asked. Call him, she said. Tell him I'll give him some money, but he has to come here and talk to both of us first. I didn't like the idea of giving Jason money, but I understood Mom's need for closure. I called him and relayed the message. He agreed immediately, saying he'd be over in an hour. While we waited, Mom asked me to help her to the living room. She wanted to be sitting up, not lying in bed, when Jason arrived. I helped her get settled on the couch, making sure she was comfortable with plenty of pillows. Jason showed up looking slightly better than the day before. He'd clearly made an effort. His clothes were clean, his hair combed, but his eyes still had that desperate look. Hi, Mom, he said softly, sitting across from her. Jason, she replied, her voice stronger than I expected. We need to talk. I sat down next to Mom, keeping my eyes on Jason. He kept fidgeting, his knee bouncing up and down like he couldn't keep still. Mom took a deep breath, and I could tell she was gathering her strength for whatever she wanted to say. Jason, I love you, she started, her voice surprisingly steady. I've always loved you. I always will love you, but I can't help you destroy yourself. Jason's eyes darted between us. I just need a little help right now. Then I'll get clean, I swear. Mom shook her head slowly. We've heard that before. I don't have much time left, and I need you to hear me clearly. I will not give you money for drugs. His face fell. But Casey said, I said Mom wanted to talk to you. I interrupted. That was true. Jason stood up abruptly, his face twisting with anger. So this is a setup? You got me over here for nothing? Mom reached out her hand. Sit down, Jason, please. Something in her voice made him listen. He sat back down, though he perched on the edge of the chair like he might bolt any second. I have something for you, Mom said. She nodded at me, and I pulled an envelope from my pocket and handed it to her. She held it out to Jason. This is not cash. It's a paid admission to the rehab center. They're expecting you today. Casey will drive you there right now if you agree. Jason stared at the envelope, but didn't take it. Those guys I owe, they won't care about rehab. They want their money. How much do you actually owe? I asked. He looked down. 800. I laughed without humor. Yesterday it was 500. The day before it was 2,000. What's the real number, Jason? He ran his hands through his hair. It keeps changing, okay? Interest or whatever. Mom's face showed no judgment, just sadness. We can help with the debt, but only after you complete the program. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. Jason finally took the envelope, opening it to look at the paperwork inside. 30 days? I don't think I can do that. You can, Mom said firmly. And you will, because I need to know you're trying before I go. Those words seemed to hit Jason hard. For the first time, I saw real emotion break through the addiction. His eyes filled with tears. I don't want you to go, he whispered. Mom's own eyes welled up. I don't want to go either, but that's not a choice I get to make. What happens to you after I'm gone? That's what keeps me up at night. I had to look away, blinking back my own tears. The three of us sat there in this heavy silence for what felt like forever. Finally, Jason nodded. Okay, I'll go. I wasn't sure I believed him, but I stood up anyway. I'll get my keys. Can I have a minute with Mom first? He asked. I hesitated, looking at Mom. She nodded. It's okay, Casey. I went to get my purse and keys, but stayed close enough to hear if anything went wrong. Through the doorway, I could see Jason kneeling by Mom's side, his head bowed as she stroked his hair. They were talking too quietly for me to make out the words. When I came back, Jason was wiping his eyes. I'm ready, he said. The drive to the rehab facility was mostly silent. Jason stared out the window, occasionally checking his phone. I kept waiting for him to change his mind or make some excuse, but he didn't. At the rehab center, I parked and turned to him. I'm coming in with you. I need to make sure you actually check in. He didn't argue. We walked in together, and I stayed while he filled out paperwork and got processed. The intake coordinator explained that he'd have to surrender his phone and go through a medical evaluation. Jason looked nervous, but nodded along. When it was time for him to go back with one of the staff members, he turned to me. Tell Mom, he started, then then stopped. Just tell her I'm doing it, for real this time. I nodded. I will. I watched him walk through the double doors, not fully believing he'd stay, but at least he'd taken the first step. When I got home, Mom was still in the living room, looking exhausted but relieved when I told her Jason had checked in. Did he seem okay? She asked. As okay as can be expected, I said, sitting beside her. He said to tell you he's doing it for real this time. She smiled faintly. I hope so. The next few days were quiet. I focused on taking care of Mom, whose condition was deteriorating faster now. The hospice nurse came daily, adjusting her medication and helping me manage her symptoms. We didn't talk much about Jason. It was like we were both holding our breath, waiting to see if he'd stay in treatment. 4 days after dropping Jason off, I got a call from the rehab center. My heart sank, assuming they were calling to tell me he'd left. Instead, the counselor on the phone asked if I could come in for a family session. Jason has been working hard, she explained. He'd like you to be part of his recovery process. I was surprised, but agreed to come the next day. I arranged for the hospice nurse to stay with Mom during my absence. At the rehab center, I was led to a small meeting room where Jason sat with his counselor, a woman named Diane. Jason looked different already, clearer somehow, though still obviously struggling. Thank you for coming, Diane said. Jason has something he'd like to say to you. Jason cleared his throat. I'm sorry, Casey, for everything, for stealing Mom's meds, for letting her suffer, for threatening to bring my problems to your doorstep. He looked down at a notebook in his hands. I've been working on my step work, and part of that is making amends. I know it's early, but with Mom's situation, I nodded, understanding the urgency. How are you feeling? Like crap, he admitted with a weak laugh. Withdrawal is hell, but they're helping me through it, and I'm staying, I promise. The counselor explained that Jason was doing well, but had a long road ahead. She asked if I'd be willing to participate in his recovery, attending family sessions when possible. Of course, I said, but my main priority has to be Mom right now. We understand, Diane said. Jason has been very open about your mother's condition. Before I left, Jason asked about Mom. I told him the truth, that she was getting weaker, sleeping more, eating less. Do you think, he hesitated, do you think she'll still be here when I finish the program? I couldn't lie to him. I don't know, Jason. The doctors think she has weeks, not months. His face crumpled. Can I call her? They let us make supervised calls after the first week. I'll ask the nurse if she's up for it, I promised. Over the next 2 weeks, Jason called every other day to talk to Mom. Sometimes she was too tired or medicated to speak for long, but she always brightened when she heard his voice. He told her about his therapy sessions, the group meetings, the things he was learning about addiction. She mostly listened, occasionally offering words of encouragement. 3 weeks into Jason's program, Mom took a sharp turn for the worse. The hospice nurse warned me that we were likely in the final days. I called the rehab center and explained the situation. Normally, we don't allow patients to leave during the first 30 days, the director told me. But given the circumstances, we can arrange a supervised visit. The next day, one of the rehab counselors brought Jason to the house. He looked so much better, clear-eyed, steadier on his feet, though still thin and tired-looking. When he saw Mom in her hospital bed in the living room, he froze for a moment, clearly shocked by how much she had declined. Then he went to her side, taking her hand gently. Hey, Mom, he said softly. She opened her eyes slowly, a smile spreading across her face when she saw him. Jason, you came. Of course I came, he said, his voice breaking. I'm doing good, Mom. Really good. I know, she whispered. I'm proud of you. They talked quietly while I made tea in the kitchen, giving them some privacy while staying within earshot. The counselor sat nearby, respectfully distant, but present, as required. After about an hour, Mom fell asleep, her hand still in Jason's. He sat there for a long time, just watching her breathe. When it was time for him to go back to the facility, he hugged me tightly. Thank you, he said, for not giving up on me. She never did, I replied. Neither will I. 2 days later, Mom passed away peacefully in her sleep. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. The hospice nurse helped me make the necessary calls, and I reached out to the rehab center to let Jason know. They brought him to the funeral, still supervised, but allowed to participate fully. He stood beside me as we received condolences from friends and relatives. He didn't break down or cause a scene. He just stood there, solid and present, occasionally squeezing my hand when things got overwhelming. After the service, his counselor told me he needed to return to the facility to complete his program. Jason nodded in agreement. I'll be out in a week, he told me. Will you still be here? I'll be here, I promised. I have to pack up the house anyway. When Jason completed his 30 days, I picked him up from rehab. He had a folder full of aftercare instructions, appointments for outpatient therapy, and information about support groups. What now? He asked as we drove away from the facility. Now we figure it out, I said. One day at a time, right? Isn't that what they teach you in there? He smiled faintly. Yeah, something like that. We drove back to Mom's house. Our house now, I guess. We still had a lot to sort through, both physically and emotionally. Jason wasn't magically fixed, and I wasn't suddenly over losing Mom, but something had shifted between us. That night, we sat on the porch swing like we used to as kids. Jason looked up at the stars. Do you think she can see us? He asked. I don't know, I answered honestly, but I think she'd be happy with what she'd see. He nodded, and we sat in comfortable silence, both thinking about the woman who never gave up on either of us, even when we gave up on each other.